Hello guys, welcome once again to another technology moment, today dedicated to closing this series of videos related to Wi-Fi 7. And if you're thinking of upgrading your computer's wireless adapter or simply installing a new Wi-Fi 7 adapter to a computer that didn't have wireless capabilities, you have come to the appropriate video. In order to understand the scope of this video, we're going to answer the following questions. Why upgrading to Wi-Fi 7 has been so problematic? Can I upgrade any laptop to Wi-Fi 7? What if I have an AMD CPU? Why is it easier to upgrade older computers to Wi-Fi 7? Which one to choose, BE200s from Intel or Qualcomm NCM865? Is MLO on Wi-Fi 7 what they promised us? The use of 6 GHz bands in certain countries and devices. And finally, myth or reality, Windows 11 must be updated to support Wi-Fi 7. Well, at the time that we are creating this video, Wi-Fi 7 has been around for about a year, officially and commercially available. And although we did what we normally advise, which is wait a few months for the technology to evolve and we can implement it reliably in our production environment, well, a year later, we still do not have a 100% positive experience, and we're going to show you precisely those obstacles that we have encountered, as well as the advantages of implementing it. We've definitely found that it's been a lot easier to upgrade any laptop from the last decade to Wi-Fi 6 than it has been to Wi-Fi 7. And still, generally, we have to have the same considerations. Most people ask, why is upgrading to Wi-Fi 7 so problematic? First of all, there is still no real guide to upgrading your computers to Wi-Fi 7, precisely because of the immense number of reports of incompatibility, of all the adapters with different models of motherboards, processors, and that is without mentioning that the BE200, the most common in Wi-Fi 7 adapters, closes the doors to AMD CPUs. If we want to upgrade, the first thing that you should do, in the case that you have a laptop computer, is not only to physically check how easy it is to access the inside of your computer and make the physical change, but also to observe which adapter is currently working on it. One simple example, in the case of Wi-Fi 7 cards, they come in the KeyE format. As for the current version installed in your computer, we have to find this by just typing the MSI Info 32 command in Windows. We look for the present network adapter and search online for its characteristics. In the case that it has a card with an Intel chipset, we verify whether or not it has CNVIO or connectivity integration. That is nothing more than an interface developed by Intel with the sole purpose of reducing production costs as it transfers tasks that were previously carried out in the network card to the main processor or the CPU, and even the motherboard itself. This is what has supposedly generated so many problems with these upgrades if the card does not support CNVIO. We will most likely, and this is not conclusive, find ourselves in situations like this one, where many users have reported that the Wi-Fi 7 network card refuses to come online. We have even had the opportunity to prove that in some cases, just installing the card will not even allow the computer to boot, or simply the card does not activate even using the appropriate drivers. Although it is argued, and we have also proven, that there is no problem installing cards with CNVIO interface in systems that include it, the ideal scenario then would be to get a card that supports at least the same version of CNVIO, right? Well, not necessarily, because we can opt for cards based on the Qualcomm chipset. More of that in a moment. This is where the most frustrating situation of this whole concept comes. Today, a year after its launch, it is difficult to find within the wide availability of Wi-Fi adapters specifications that describe whether or not they are compatible with CNVIO and the version of it. Version 1, 2, or 3, the 3 CNVIO standards that Intel has developed so far. All this in short can give us a guide or explanation as to why our upgrade to Wi-Fi 7 could fail. Now let's take a look at some examples. In the case of this Lenovo IdeaPad Slim 5 computer, model 2024, this is the network card that it comes with from the factory. By the way, it does not have Wi-Fi 6E, which means no 6 GHz band, which is actually what made us go for such upgrade in this laptop. We then went to the Intel's website to verify what the characteristics of this network card was, following the procedure that we just mentioned, and we found the detail that this is a card with a CNVIO version 2 interface. That should be the starting point for choosing the wireless card we should buy. By the way, the nomenclature of the cards represents the version or the presence of the CNVIO interface. To make the example short, this update didn't work on this device, and in the case of the BE200, we constantly receive the following card status. Many may say that this was to be expected, since the BE200 doesn't have CNVIO support, right? A parenthesis here, by the way, many cards that do not have such interface manage to work almost randomly on one device or another one depending on the port, the values in the system, and of course, the processor. Many people argue also the BIOS versions. It has almost become a matter of luck. The computers where they worked very good at, they worked with extraordinary results. Let's take a look then at the contradiction of this. This other card, also based on the BE200 chipset from the manufacturer WavLink, has been working for many months, about 10, on this Lenovo computer. Very similar, by the way, to the one that we just saw, but a generation prior to this one, 2023 model, Intel Core i7 processor, and although on a couple of occasions it showed the same alarmed device behavior, it was temporary. Operating system as well as firmware updated. From all our tests, we went to an intermediate point with which we actually did quite well. We installed the most problematic Intel BE200 card that we have on this 10th generation Core i3 processor. But remember, this is not the WavLink model, the one that we just mentioned. This is another one. This is a card that has not worked well on any computer that we had put it on. And surprisingly, it worked outstandingly on this machine. This calls into question whether all BE200s are the same. Answer at this point to the last question. Windows 11 does not need to be updated, as was so much speculated, for Wi-Fi 7 to operate well. Actually, that's what the drivers are for, unless of course fully CNVIO capable devices are being used, as that involves other components managed by the operating system. What was simply happening is that it didn't report that it was connected to Wi-Fi 7, even though it was. Today, with the latest Windows 11 update, it not only reports that you are actually connected to a Wi-Fi 7 network, what channels to which you have connected simultaneously in case that you are using MLO and it is operating on your access point. Something that is not relevant in general, but very important for many. Then, why is it easier to upgrade to Wi-Fi 7 older computers? Well, for those of you who are probably wondering, or some who already knew, although CNVIO already existed long before Wi-Fi 7, the update to Wi-Fi 6 has been always less problematic, and as we constantly repeat, it is still a great update. For example, when the 6 GHz band is involved, connecting to Wi-Fi 7 access points or Wi-Fi 6E access points, or the router which already involves that band by default, it does not matter that the client has a Wi-Fi 6E card and the router or access point will obtain speeds that are truly extraordinary. Again, this taking into account that in Wi-Fi 7 the router has the 6 GHz band natively, and in Wi-Fi 6 this was exclusive to Wi-Fi 6E. The advantage and biggest difference is that most access points or Wi-Fi 7 routers come with uplinks of at least 2.5 gigabit per second to interact with the rest of the network. That, as we've seen, is fantastic to have such faster networks. And all this brings us to the next point, in which some older computers that we keep using for testing purposes, of course, incredibly, the use of Wi-Fi 7 adapters that connect to the motherboard through its PCI Express ports are very functional and easy to install and give extraordinary performance. In fact, it has allowed us to install Wi-Fi 7 cards in equipment that is more than 12 and 13 years old. All this at quite interesting speeds. All this most likely because these computers didn't even impose restrictions like that of CNVIO. Ironically, an advantage. So if you decide to install cards based on the BE200 or the Qualcomm NCM865 on computers between 5 and 12 years old, it will most likely work without any problem. Now returning to the MSI HERALD, which as you may have seen we disassembled and watched that it comes with a Qualcomm NCM865 network card, this card has been less problematic than any other card that we have tested in Wi-Fi 7. It has been accepted in practically all the equipment that we have tested, from 3rd to 13th generation CPUs and the Intel Core Ultra 4 laptops. Even this Core 7 2024 that didn't receive any BE200 worked perfectly with the Qualcomm NCM865, apparently still pending improvements in the MLO implementation. Which, by the way, answers question number 4, which makes these models more versatile than the Intel BE200s. And many users have reported that this card, the NCM865, is 100% compatible with AMD equipment. And by the way, we'll listen to all of you who have managed to update any AMD to Wi-Fi 7 with this MSI in the comments. Remember that this is of great help for many. About MLO, we couldn't finish this video without talking about MLO, or multi-link operation, for those of you who didn't know it. And by the way, we have analyzed it in previous videos, and involves that extraordinary functionality exclusive of Wi-Fi 7 of transmitting and receiving simultaneously in different bands, this to increase the speed of data transmission. Although the speeds obtained using MLO are extraordinary, both in the link and in constant tests with the BE200, here we see the average speed obtained on this Acer Core i3 10th generation on Wi-Fi 7, really good, or even the peaks that we achieved with this Lenovo that we mentioned a moment ago, extraordinary speeds on Wi-Fi 7 using only the 6 GHz band. However, we saw something that caught our attention, and we experienced it while testing this WAV-link adapter on this machine. This is very important, as you will see how Wi-Fi 7 is being developed. While we were testing Wi-Fi 7 results close to 2 gigabit per second, which was nothing extraordinary, it was necessary to pause to update the access points firmware, which we thought might improve performance. We were actually making a video at the same time, and curiously, right after the firmware update, the speed tests were not even close to what we were achieving just a few minutes before. Something interesting to note. On the other hand, a disadvantage that will most likely be addressed in the future updates, either of the firmware or the hardware itself, will be the limitation that exists, at least in the OMATA equipment, and it seems that it is in general, of not allowing the use of the protocols 802.11k, V, and R, which are associated precisely with roaming, as we also saw in recent videos. Let's remember that this is a very powerful feature that works even when configuring those access points in standalone mode. If you need to have a very good performance, but also have the great advantages of roaming, you might want to set a band preference to 6 GHz, either in the adapter or in the access point, which by the way is becoming more and more automatic in all the adapters, and that means deactivating MLO, which still is gonna give us truly extraordinary performance only at the 6 GHz band. Another topic, we could not ignore the fact that the 6 GHz band is not available in certain countries, and depending on the configuration that we have on our equipment, routers and access points, it will not even broadcast in such band. This poses many challenges to overcome with the implementation of Wi-Fi 7 and MLO, of which true benefits lie in the use of that spectrum. Even Samsung has had a lot of problems with the S24 and S25 Ultra, and it seems that they have not fixed their problems when many users around the world have not been able to take advantage of its extraordinary Wi-Fi 7 capabilities due to the devices being incorrectly geo-restricted and not letting the devices detect the 6 GHz networks even when signals are being broadcasted and other devices are being able to connect to them. Odd enough. Okay, so conclusions. We can conclude that although Wi-Fi 7 growth has been steady and well received for more than a year since first offering of Wi-Fi 7 devices, we could not overlook the many compatibility issues reported by so many users around the world. So, as we have constantly suggested, when you decide to buy a Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 7 network adapter, and if you're buying online, it is always better to do it while the store allows you to return the products in case that they don't work correctly on your computer. Okay guys, thank you all for watching this video. We really hope that it is very useful to you and is as informative as it was intended. It gave you all the information that you were waiting for to be able to carry out successful upgrades. And as always, your kind support for us to be able to continue bringing you all this content is to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button for this video. See you next time.